Welcome back to another episode of The Final Cut here in London. And we've got a real interesting one today where we're going to be introducing and talking to two tech geniuses that are revolutionising the hairdressing, barbering, beauty industry with their different companies. I'm going to introduce you both straight away, and we're going to go over to Luke Doolan, who is the MD for Phorest in the UK and Ireland. Yep. Welcome to Final Cut, Luke.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we've got Tom Bentley-Taylor, who is the owner of Vish. Welcome to Final Cut.
Thanks, Simon.
Did I get that right?
That's
a mouthful.
Almost. I'll take that.
No.
I'll take that.
Oh, do I need to do another cut?
No.
Final cut, little pun. All right, so I'm really interested in this sector. And I'll tell you for why. Mm-hmm. My upbringing, when I worked in a salon before I went to work for Wall 24 years ago, we was one of the first salon groups to have a company called Microstyle who come and did. We had all the systems on
I remember
all
it.
the appointments on there.
Yeah.
It tell you like what you did this time last week, what you did this time last month. It do report, stop report. But it had its faults in them early days, as you can imagine, Tom. So when I was told that we were going to be interviewing you on here, and then I speak to Barry a lot on what Barry does on his other side from the fellowship. He knows how obsessed I am with Wi-Fi and how business should have better Wi-Fi. It's not like your £25 a month home package. You know, so all of this really interests me, but it's not sexy enough at the minute for everybody to have it. And what I want to do on our episode today is tell our viewers how not only cool it is, but how it's like having an extra, it's like having a manager in your salon that's going to manage your columns, and it's going to manage your business, and it's going to manage your colour and the WhatsApps and everything that we do. So we're going to open you both up, let you tell everybody how fantastic your brands are, and then hopefully, we're going to put in our bios and in the links below if you're going to put some kind of nice discounts in there and some introductory offers for our listeners as well and viewers. Okay, look, let's start off with you. Give us a little bio about what your company is and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said tech genius, and I'm not the tech genius at all. I don't know when they're going to show up, Simon, to be honest. But yeah, so I'm Luke. I work with Phorest. So for anyone who doesn't know Phorest, we've been around about 20 years. So we started off actually on the salon floor. So our CEO, Ronan, used to work in a salon in Dublin. And it was over the Christmas time one year, he noticed that there was a lot of people coming in, but they weren't like showing up for their appointments. So cancellations were massive, and no-shows were massive at the time. So what he thought was, why don't we just send text messages out to people before they come to their appointment, just to remind them, and then see, can we actually cut down that rate? And they actually cut down no-shows by about 70%. And then what they did was they took those same people, and then in January sent them another text message to say, why don't you come back in January? Come back in January and you get a free product. And it started to drive January sales as well. So that's where the idea kind of started. So that was the first text message in the industry ever to go. And then it evolved into like a full POS system. So like the idea behind it is to take all the pain actually away from salon owners and having to manage their day-to-day. And our software will do that. So manage their calendars, their bookings, all their staff rosters, their stock, inventory, the non-sexy stuff, as you're saying, but it's to manage all of that. And then we built a lot of marketing tools on top of that. So not only do we manage the business, that kind of operational part of the business, we've now created tools like Online Reputation Manager, which helps salons really drive their reputation through Google online. We've created tools like our Phorest Ads Manager, which means now salons can actually go and create ad campaigns on Facebook and Instagram to get more clients in the door as well. So it started from that first text message and then developed into this massive, manage the whole ecosystem of a salon. And now we're now in the US, we're in the UK, we're in Ireland, we're in Germany, we're in Australia, Finland, Netherlands. So we're really, really taking over. And we're known really in the industry as a partner, I think, to salons, more than actually like a tech company. And we'll get into that a little bit more and I'll talk about that. But we're kind of the premium software for salons at the minute in the UK. That's kind of us in a nutshell, really.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
So, so I work for a company called Vish. I came across Vish about 5 years ago. It's a Canadian company. So a couple of brothers, one of the brothers had a colour business, 2 salons, and saw there was loads of waste in colour. It's the second highest cost in the salon, generally, once you paid your wages. So how do you get rid of that waste and make your colour efficient? So they built an app which links to a Bluetooth scale, and you weigh colour on it. And then really we're just capturing the data at the point that you mix colour. So it captures all of the information. You don't need to do colour notes anymore. And then we adjust those formulas so they don't have waste in the future. So the interesting thing was, once that first piece came out about getting rid of waste, we found, right, it's amazing data, and more than a quarter of the product that's bought into Salon is chucked down the sink. So it's not good for the planet, it's not good for their profits. So then you start looking at the data a bit more, and then you realise actually every guest that comes in needs a different amount of product, and the products all cost different amounts. So actually you've got this very varied cost for every guest that comes in, and yet you're charging the same amount, right, for every guest.
Interesting. That is interesting.
So that's fundamentally wrong, right? No other industry does that. If you've got a variable cost, you charge appropriately. You go into hospitality.
Well, you order 2 steaks, you're paying for 2 steaks.
Exactly.
Not,
and if you want...
then you are. Well, you're not going to charge me the same.
If you want extra greens, if you want extra chips, if you want to top up a wine, right, they're going to charge you for it. And it's the same concept, really. So we're looking at that data and working with salon owners to make sure that they're profitable on every single guest. And it's fundamentally changes their profitability. So that's the second bit. And the final bit's really about the inventory. So that data we're really capturing at the point of mixing and using in these pretty cool ways.
I'm wanting now to shout out to every salon and barbershop in the industry, because you do, obviously, for barbers as well. It's not just for salons. It's like, watch what we're telling you now, because it's not only, I think it becomes, for me as a young stylist and a young manager, going back all those years, it became addictive. As soon as I weren't doing clients, I was going onto system and looking at performances and pie charts in them days. And looking at, because one of the biggest things stylists always say, I've been busy all week, me. And there was a part of the report that said, well, actually, you've been here Monday, you had Monday off, so you've done Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but you've actually only been productive for 19 hours. So at time you've done clients for 19 hours.
Yep.
So the other 21 hours, tell us what you've been doing, because you've not been on the reports and your clients. So I was hooked at a young age. You guys have obviously took this on to completely different levels now. What would you say, Luke, first of all, and I'll come over to you, Tom, but what would you say fundamentally for people who are watching and stuff? What's the biggest change that this does to a salon owner? What's the what you could say, I'll tell you what, if you take our product in, this is what will change in your life. Not about just generally in the salon. What changes their life?
I think there's 2 things with it, right? I think when people come into Phorest, they love the reporting elements. Like what you said, you get really kind of, like, you're captured by that. You love it. So do I. Like, what we do really well is that you have all your top line metrics in a salon. You'll have rebooking, you'll have retention, you've got like product percentages. What we do really well is that we'll not just show those metrics, but we'll really show you what's driving those metrics. So if revenue is down, is it down because your retention is down? Is your retention down because it's for new clients? Or is it existing clients? Exactly. Or is it with new clients of a particular staff member? Like, is there one staff member that's really struggling with new clients? So we like to give those insights into it. That's the first part. So like when people come to Phorest, they really get an insight into what's happening in their business. And then the second part then is that we know the industry well. We've been in the industry for 20 years. Like, we were born on a salon floor. And so the tools that we developed then to help fix those metrics work really well for the industry. Like, our goals really align with the industry. So everything we make really, really starts to work for the salon. I'll give you an example. I had a salon that came into us that their revenue was down. And we had to drill down step by step. And we found out that it was just new clients. It was new clients for a particular service that they just weren't retaining. So they weren't getting them in, first of all, which is the problem, but then they weren't retaining them after. So we developed our social media tool, our ads manager. So we could create a campaign specifically to get new clients in the door and actually then track the success of it as well. That was really, really important. The other bit, sorry, and I'm Irish, so if I keep talking, Simon, just tell me just to stop, right? The other part around reports, which I think is interesting, some people love it and they love to delve into it. We want to make it as easy as possible for everyone to look at it. So a stylist, like, we have it now, we've built an app that it's on their phone. So like, they can see all their metrics at a glance, they can see what their targets are, how they're doing against it, and it's there in front of them. So like, it's giving the insights, making it as accessible as possible that everyone can actually use it, but then giving the tools then to help them actually fix the metrics and actually grow as a business. That's the most important thing for us.
And Tom, we talk about this app, this Bluetooth to the scales, and Do you do when you're talking to salons? Do you give them show them test studies of people how much money they've saved by taking this system in? Because that's one thing. We're a very emotional industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to make it sexy here. Yeah. So for me, you come and said to me, right? And I've got a salon, and I know that you don't know, but you do know that there's wastage, and it's one of the bugbears that all salon owners have is colour going down the drain, money going down the drain. Let's just say it's not colour.
It is, yeah.
But if somebody come and said to me, right, if you can take this in, get all your staff trained up on it, we will save you on our basis and analysis. What we've done, we're going to save you like £6,300 a year. That's all straight away to me. That's our hairdressers and barbers holiday. They look at that. If that's a week in Dubai, that's 4 weeks in Benidorm. That's how they'd look at it. Do you do stuff like that?
Yeah,
Can
and
you
I
give
think
us a kind of idea of how you done that in past.
Yeah, I think for us it's really about creating a result in the business, and we use technology to get that result. So people think, all right, you're not just buying a bit of software here. I think a lot of what we wrap around the software, the team to deliver it, how we train people is vital. And we're not here just to sell you software. We're here to create a positive result in the business. And that's predominantly about profitability. Okay. If we can save you 25% on your color bill, that immediately goes into your pocket as profit. Yep. If you actually start charging accurately for every guest that comes in, so those guests that do need more colour,
percentage of colour usage.
So I suppose the point is, right, from a colour perspective, I always give the example of, okay, if somebody comes in for a regrowth tint or a root tint, okay, that's an inch of coverage on your roots, okay. Let's say, for argument's sake, that's 30 grams of tint and 30 grams of developer. When we look at the data, on average, stylists are using 120 to 180 grams. Now, that's not a regrowth tint. A regrowth tint would be come back every 6 weeks. It's an inch of coverage on the hair. We're not charging accurately for that service. And so for us, it's really, okay, let's charge accurately for what we're doing. People are incredibly talented and creative in this industry, and we really want to support that, right? You need profit to carry on being creatives and successful in the industry. So for us, it's really about those actionable things. From a stylist perspective, they might say, well, I just want all my color notes captured. I don't want to have to write them down, or I forget. That's absolutely fine. But in using the product, we're going to get rid of that waste just by using it, and then we're going to charge accurately. So you actually end up with a lot more profit because you're dropping your costs and raising your price when you need to.
So am I getting that right then, that the Vish system helps to keep a record card?
Correct. So nobody needs to write any colour notes, and generally we're not great at doing colour notes, and they may not be that accurate. You've got complete accuracy, so it'll say the product, the amount of grams that you've used of that product to 1/10 of a gram, right?
On that client, Mrs. Smith.
Exactly. For that service, for every service, you might do multiple bowls. You might be incredibly creative, and then that guest comes back later and says, "Oh, I'd love that colour. Can you do it again?"
You must be talking to Toby Dick about
No.
it. Using the word guest is something I've learned off Toby Dick. We don't call them clients, we call them guests at the chapel.
Yeah,
there you go, Toby, a little plug for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
And he's a Phorest client as well.
Yeah.
There you go. It's
So,
like
but
a happy family. Adams.
But I think capturing all that data, it's about accuracy.
Yeah.
We're in a professional industry. We're professionals here. Well, you want accuracy then. You want to be able to recreate the same thing exactly as you did before, and that requires data.
So from a parameter of colour not being charged,
Yep.
what could that? How far out could it be financially?
Well, I can say in terms of that, pretty much every salon that we look at, that we put the technology in, are missing out on as much profit as they're spending on colour each month.
Do you know what? I'm going to jump in a little bit earlier and say about all the colour houses, your Wellers, your L'Oreals, your Goldwells don't like you. But then you turned it around because they wouldn't like, so you're saying you save you 25% on your colour bill in terms of your wastage. You didn't say usage, you said wastage. So you have to be careful when you're listening to this. But then you
save 25% on the amount of product you're using dispensing.
But also as well for the colour houses, they're increasing. If they're using more, you're charging more for it, which encourages them to spend with those companies as well. So
Yeah, I think your cost per application drops, but you do more services. And actually, salon owners, right, are entrepreneurial. They'll take on more staff. They'll open more locations. We find that actually, yes, there's a saving. They're more profitable. Guess what? If those salons are more profitable,
They expand.
They tend to expand. They tend to take on those new products and things like that. So at the moment, we're seeing in the industry very few salons are making a net profit at the end of the day. Well, if we can make them more profitable, we've got a healthy industry. We don't need to compete with the supermarket stacking shelves versus going into the industry as an assistant. We feel really strongly about that. If we can help salons be more profitable, it can fundamentally change the industry, and everybody benefits, including the colour houses.
do you find some of the colour houses, do they work with you?
Yep, I think there's a proportion that believe, particularly sustainable brands, because the waste is not good for the environment.
Yep.
Not just manufacturing, shipping, the actual waste itself, recycling, etc. So if we can get rid of that waste, that's fundamentally good for the environment, but also for their profit. So a lot of those brands really support it. We are seeing a bit of a change in terms of some of the brands who probably were a bit like, oh, crumbs. Now we've got almost 2,500 salons using the technology, and I think they realise this is a bit like the point of sale, going from a paper book to a computer with your bookings. Now you can see this sort of technology being in all salons. So either you run with it, do you know what I mean, and actually help salons leverage that technology, or it's here to stay.
It's the first time I've heard that, one of the things, what you just said there is that the product, especially the colour houses, should want to save the salons money.
Yep.
If they have to take a step back sometimes but they're using their products properly and from a sustainability point of view and everything like that. We do something very similar, is that we don't want people buying a £200 clipper if they do 3 gents a month, a salon. So we train the wholesale staff on product knowledge.
Yep.
So if somebody says to you, I'm after a clipper, how many gents do you do a month? Well, I'm a stylist, so I only do about 10 a month. Okay, this will be, the super taper course will be brilliant for you. And it's only £70. So she had £200 to spend. She'll still spend the other 130 with you anyway because of the training, the loyalty that you've got. So I think it's important that to get the good product knowledge across.
And I think salespeople who work for these companies and everything, actually, if you focus on making that salon more profitable, right, and advising them properly in terms of being profitable, guess what? They're going to stick with you. They're loyal. They're going to spend with you. You've actually got somebody who you're going to sell to for life, rather than carry on, right, we're going to live off that waste. Is that salon going to be open in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years?
Yeah, and Luke, with your system with tracking colour, versus the other services, where is colour from a profitability and usability, the actual usage? So is colour going up? Colour services?
It's actually what we see, and we did some metrics on this before. So with Phorest, we have about 3,500 salons now in the UK, and what we look at all the time is what's happening in the industry, and we're trying to keep on top of that, because the more we keep on top of that, the more products we can release and kind of make sure that the industry's growing. When we looked at this before, we did see that it's the frequency that's probably the biggest issue. That the frequency between colour appointments is going out further than what it was before.
Right.
That's kind of the big thing that we see.
People are
stretching out the appointments. Yeah, they're stretching out those appointments. So that's the main thing what we're seeing in the data. That was cute. We looked at this for the fellowship, actually. We did something last year. And we're just saying the big thing is the stretching out the appointments. That's a big thing.
I think that's just generally as well. It's not just about colour work, though. They're making cuts stretch out longer. In my day, it was always 4 weeks for gents, 6 weeks for ladies.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't work that way anymore. And I try to say to salon owners, whoever invented that one, it's not right. Do you like going on holidays? Yeah. Do you like nice clothes? Yeah. Well, 6 week appointment's no good to you. You need them in. And how many times a client sits in and says, I've loved it, but this last week's been a nightmare. But they're still rebooking for 6 weeks. You say, tell you what, that fringe would have been out. I'm going to book you for 5 weeks instead of the 6 weeks. You get an extra visit.
I suppose what's the motivation to have your guest come back within a certain period of time, right? So back to that point that I made in terms of actually as time goes on, I'm going to need to use more product and I'm going to need to spend more time on my guest.
Frequency.
Right?
Yeah.
So actually, and I read a stat recently that it's 17 weeks on average across the UK at the moment, that time between visits. Well, I've been in the industry 25 years and I've always heard stylists and salon owners saying 8 weeks, 8 weeks, 8 weeks. They're sort of within 8 weeks is what you want. Well, it's 17 weeks. So we've got half of the number of appointments now than we used to. And then if you look at those, well, actually, if there's time between visits and you need more product and time, because that's what we're selling really, is our time based on our skill and expertise and the product, right? If we need more over time, we're charging the same amount. So if someone comes in 16 weeks, we charge them the same amount as if they're in 6 weeks. Well, where's the motivation? And we're taking on the cost.
Yeah.
So we need to change that in terms of how we're pricing. And I believe you look at time and product. Even if you want to call it a service, we need to look at time and
I
product.
think pricing is just a bit too complex and out of date.
I think for me, it's very hard to do it without data. Because actually, if someone comes in and they have a certain service, they might take an hour of your time. The next person who comes in has that same service and need an hour and 15 minutes. You know, they might come in, both of them after 10 weeks, and one uses £5 of colour, the other requires £15 of colour. When you speak to a stylist, did you use any more colour? They'll say, I used a little bit more, yeah, but I'm not going to charge them. Or, you know, well, I took a little bit more time, but Mary's been coming to me for ages. It's like we're a professional industry with very talented, creative people, and we need to make sure if there's an extra 15 minutes, we need to charge for it.
To bill it.
Yeah.
The dentist does.
So I think it's about accuracy.
Yeah.
You know, if you leave it to my judgment as a stylist, I'm probably going to let it go. If I've got the data, it's black and white, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I need to charge this amount.
Yeah. And back to the frequency part, was really interesting what you said. Like, we had to develop tools just for frequency as well. So like, we developed a tool called Client Reconnect. What basically we'll do is look at the average booking history of a client constantly. So every time you come in, between your first appointment, second appointment, to average those booking times constantly. And we had to develop a tool and a dashboard just to say that if anyone goes out of the normal booking history, it has to be flagged in a dashboard that someone can actually just see and say, okay, I've got 100 clients who are at risk now because their booking history has gone out, but you can't wait to see are they going to come back. You have to get them back in again.
Yeah.
So we had to build this dashboard to make it accessible.
Automatic, Luke?
Yeah, it is. So like, what'll happen every day is that the system will just scan through your clients.
Yeah.
And it'll pop up all these clients and say, you have X amount of people who are in for normally for colour. They haven't come in like they normally do. Their average booking cycle is about 6 or 7 weeks, and it's gone beyond that. You need to reach out to them.
Would it give you a figure as well as
It does. So it gives you like a loss. So we do client lifetime values. So this is a big thing at the minute for us. Like, we created a whole report around showing salon owners like how much clients are actually really worth. You know, like if someone walks out the door, it's not the appointment you missed. It's the next couple of years' revenue potentially that's going to walk out the door. So we linked that report into this dashboard. It basically just means that you can go in and just with a couple of clicks of buttons, it sends them text messages, sends them emails, sends them recurring stuff to get them back in again. Because we found, like that frequency, people were, they didn't realize their client was gone until it was like 6 months later, and they're walking down the high street, and then they say, oh, there's Barry. Barry used to be in the salon.
Yeah.
And then they go back to the system, check it out, and Barry hasn't been there in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
So that's how we had to develop it. Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the reasons we have to, like what Tom was saying, for us, it's all about data, understanding the data that's happening in the industry, and then building tools to help with that. So we have other campaigns, like I know we spoke about this before, that will just help salons send out campaigns every month to try and drive that frequency or drive more services. So not coming in for the one service, can we get a second service with that as well? Or like if they haven't bought product before, we have tools that will just send out product recommendations.
So how do you structure your education?
Yeah.
Because this is, you're going down, you're drilling down, to a granular level, which is perhaps beyond most receptionists or managers who don't have the time to actually look at this. I mean, what's the education program that sits behind this?
Yeah, so what we don't want to be is a glorified POS system. Like, we don't want people to use 10% of the system because it won't help them grow. They're not going to get the most out of it. So we have, we developed this probably about 3 or 4 years ago. We developed a team called business advisors. So this is a team that are dedicated to the salon. So they're all
grow team.
This is the growth team, yeah. I think you've met them before at our owner summit.
Yeah.
They're ex-industry. They know exactly what it's like to be either behind the chair or at a reception desk when it's busy and someone's screaming at you to check out. You have all these other things going on. They understand all that, but they understand the technology as well. So everyone gets a dedicated business advisor that will run through this with them and basically run through monthly plans or quarterly plans, like run through reports and say, is it retention is your problem? Is it retail? Is it that you've got a staff member that actually isn't performing? And come up with plans on how they actually grow the business. We developed that team, it's probably about 5 years ago now, like that concept. And then we have other platforms, like we have e-learning platforms where people can actually go and learn about the software. But it's such a personal industry. We had to have a team of people in there to help actually the salon grow. So, yeah, we developed that. There's a good team of them in there.
And has that worked?
Yeah, it has. So what we found is that if we so many tools, if you go on, log onto the system, you might get overwhelmed. There's just so much you need. It's so much there. You need somebody kind of sitting with you to look at what areas for growth do you actually need in the software. And these are the features that we have. We can build branded apps. We have the online reputation manager. We can do email campaigns, SMS campaigns. We've got a full marketing suite. But what I find is that when salons, if they're afraid, if their revenue drops, the first thing they'll do is send a campaign to everybody with a discount, to try and get people back in the door. We don't want that. We want someone to be able to sit with the salon owner and say, this is actually the problem that's happening in the salon right now. This is a tool you need to do to use it, and we'll help you do it as well. And in a month's time, we'll check in and see how everything's going. So yeah, it has worked. I think without that team, you run the risk of just being a glorified POS system, glorified till, And when I go back to that partner of the industry part, that's why that's probably our secret sauce in a way, that we've got people from the industry working in Phorest to help educate salons across the UK on how to get the most out of the system. That's definitely our secret sauce.
And how do you get your message out, Tom, in terms of marketing and stuff? So our listeners and viewers are watching, how do they
How do they find out about Vish? We talk a lot about business, so we want to be talking at business events and those sorts of things. There's the traditional way, right? You can look at us online and that sort of thing. We get a lot of people referring us, to be honest. We've got a really good, solid client base, people who are actually seeing the benefits, and they'll scream and shout from the houses, So, but from our perspective, we've got a team. So we've got a sales team alongside the marketing, and it's very much a consultative approach. It's not about selling software. It's understanding, okay, what issues have you got in your business? Some of those issues are universal, right? And we know the data or whatever, and we can use that technology to support it.
Are they typically the same problems where you're going into?
Yeah, the potential for saving. If you look at products doubled, more than doubled in the last 10 years. Have we doubled our prices? No, we have not. Do you know what I mean? So actually, 10 years ago, we probably didn't care if there was a bit of extra product being used or something like that. We can't afford to do that now. So from our perspective, it's very much about, okay, when we look at different salons, we always see at least 25%, I'd say, between 20 and 30% waste in every single salon. Okay. And in terms of the number of people who are charging accurately, 1 in 5 colour guests doesn't make any profit. The thing is, the stylist will always win because they're commissioned on the total revenue for that guest.
No matter whether that client was at a loss.
Yeah, whether they're at a loss. Let's say I might use £5 when I'm doing a service and I charge £100, let's say, just to have a round figure. Well, we've made £95. If I'm actually salaried, commissioned, there's employers' national insurance, things like that, you're probably paying me 50%, right, of that service. So that's 50 quid to me, and you as a salon owner get 45 quid, right, because you've got to pay the cost of the colour. But actually, I might have a guest coming in and I use £20 of product. I still get my 50 quid. You're getting 30, and you've got to keep the lights on and all that sort of stuff. So once you start to break out what individual bills look like, 1 in 5 colour guests, you should just not have them in your business. And once you can see them, then it's right, let's charge appropriately. So what we might do with some salons is have a more complicated menu of services. So I'm not just going to have that regrowth tint. I'm going to have a regrowth plus or a regrowth 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever I want. But now I've got the data to support the fact I should charge that guest more. Or we might charge for the extra product itself and actually put, right, we allow this amount for our service. Anything over and above that we'll charge. And the technology tells us.
You see, listening to you two guys, I look at this as really simple. Because I'm listening to this, I'm like, if I had a salon, I'd be like, yes and yes. Let's have you in. Get everybody trained up on it, 100%. But I'd be looking at getting hotels where you get 100 salon owners in. I know easy said than done. Mm-hmm. If you do what you've just said to us two, what's the uptake? And I need to see how the mindset is out there. Do people need persuading? Do you need to show them like reviews and stats and stuff? Because if you've got all that, what you've just said to me, Tom, with the percentages, the management side of things, how you can look at things like love the lifetime client, you know, and it's not just about she's gone off somewhere else, she's not coming in now for a haircut that's 30 quid. Well, it's not 30 quid or 50 quid. Yeah, she comes in 6 times a year. Mm-hmm. She's been coming for 4 years. Mm-hmm. You just lost $4,000. If you're doing all that in front of salon owners, what is the uptake? Where are we? What if you've got 100 salon owners in front of you? What's the uptake when you've done your presentation to them?
I mean, I don't know. From my side, it's really people say, "Oh, I should have looked at this a while ago." They see, they see an advert, they see stuff on social media. Once they actually start to look at it, once we take them through the data and they realise what's going on in their business, I think it's a real eye opener. And most people say, I should have looked at it before. So it's all very well looking at an ad and things like that. But I think you need to take the time out and spend half an hour or an hour having a look at technology. And if you've got technology already, have a look at what else is out there, right? Technology moves very, very fast. So it's really looking at, okay, what are the next big things? What's coming out? How can I leverage that? Every business, every industry on the planet is a tech business now, including ours. We need to use that and leverage technology, I would say. So take the time out and have a look.
And I think as well, I think it's a really good point. For us, there's nobody's come to Phorest and seen Phorest and said, no, that's not going to work for my business. Like, that doesn't happen. What does happen though is, and you might get this as well, Tom, there's a fear of change. You know, like with salon owners, like they have this fear that this is going to be a massive undertaking, you know, and we've had to learn, like, you know, it's taken 20 years, but we've learned it. And we've had to develop structures to make that as easy as possible. So like, how do we take the data from what they're previously using into Phorest in a seamless way? So then when they start using it, like there's no errors. Or how do we train all their staff in the right way? Or how do they make sure, like, on the day that they're going live with Phorest, that there's somebody like there ready to kind of help with anything? Exactly, you know. So we had to develop teams, like onboarding teams, that will step them through. Like, it takes about, we were talking about this earlier on, it takes about 20 days from like signing up to Phorest to going live, in and around about that. During that time, you'll get somebody to always sit with you and show you what, like, basically bring you across the software, train you in the software, make you feel comfortable with it, make sure you're using the features that like you wanted to use at the very start and get you set up. And then when you go live, then that there's somebody sitting there to say, okay, I'm here with you. You know, like, this isn't as hard as you think it's going to be, and I'm here to make sure everything's okay. So that whole cycle of just knowing how the industry works and what happens in the industry is important, because you have to support that early stages. That's the most important thing. But that's the big thing we would have. It's people want to do it, but they're just afraid of that change. That's the main thing, really.
It's a question to both systems then. Let's say, because this does happen, there's no point turning a blind eye to it, but there is salons out there that will have 10 staff working in there and 8 of them are rent a chair. Do both these systems work on that kind of multi-level? Where would you need 8 of your product, 1 for each stylist to do their own colour? And how does it work with your Phorest system as well? We'll go to you first, Tom. You've got a salon that's got like 8 rent-a chairs.
there's different models out there, isn't there? So I think, the technology can be used for any model that you've got, right? So whether it's rent a chair or, let's say you've just got a space and you've got self-employed people, I think it really depends upon what's the salon owner actually geared towards. Ultimately, if you've got a salon that's got colour and is providing that colour to rent a chair people, okay, actually now I can bill them accurately for that colour.
That's what I wanted to
So actually, and there's an extra revenue stream there for them. The stylist is happy because they haven't got to go to the wholesaler themselves, right? And they'll just get billed on exactly the value and the amount of grams that they've used. So right through to we'll have independent people who have it on their phone and have a scale, and they'll use that. So whether they're working alone or with other self-employed people, as well as the full service salons.
Yeah.
But the full service salons, I think the we can help all of them. They have the same problems. As the salon gets bigger, the spend's bigger, the problem's bigger. As you have more locations, it's bigger again. So actually the bigger the business, the bigger the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Or the bigger the saving.
Or the bigger the saving, exactly.
Yeah. For us, our kind of sweet spot in the market, what we're really known for is salons with kind of 5 or more staff. That's kind of where we sit. If they're self-employed or not within there, the system caters for us. So one of the big things with our software is that it's how does payments work through the system if you've got self-employed staff. That's kind of the main issue really, because it can't hit the salon's books. It has to go directly out to the self-employed person. So we've had to build that recently. So we've built a whole infrastructure around payments. So let's say, I went in and I'm going to use Barry's salon again. Barry, I know you don't have a salon, but I'm sure it'd be fantastic if you did. If I went in and I was paying that money that I just paid for the service goes directly to the staff member rather than going into the salon. So we've had to build a whole infrastructure around it. But we were chatting about this before, and we've had to build it because of that tipping legislation that's coming out. That's the bit that I'm worried about for the industry now in July. So if anyone doesn't know, the tipping legislation that's going to come out in July basically means that if you're taking tips through the business and you're controlling the tip and passing it to somebody else, so in that example, if I paid Barry and then Barry passed that then to his employee and I didn't go directly to it, Barry will now have to pay national insurance on that tip, and that's going to be coming out in July. So the act has actually been passed through government and they're just creating this code of conduct around it. So we've had to move quickly with this and basically develop a tool that means that rather than the money hitting Barry's salon and then going to somebody else, it has to go directly to that staff member. So it means Barry doesn't have to pay national insurance tax. So we've had to rechange it.
Aware of that.
Huge.
Yeah, it's massive. So basically, it's a big change for the industry. We learned about it in November last year, so we've had to kind of pivot and try and move with it. But essentially, the whole idea behind the law was that there is some industries that just weren't paying tips to their staff members, or they weren't
going through the books and staying there.
Going through the books, staying in the books, or they would pay their staff members 80% of wage and subsidise the rest through tips. So the whole idea behind the law is that 100% of all tips need to go to the staff member. And the second part of it is that they say it's you need to be fairly allocating tips to the employees. Now, this doesn't really work in our industry because if you did the service, typically you get the tip. But if you're in a restaurant, the tip might go in and it gets distributed to other people. So that doesn't really fit with us.
Yeah.
But the problem now is that we know that tips are going through cards. So people are going into salons, they're tipping going through the card. But because it's hitting the card, it's hitting the salon. And now the salon is liable for national insurance tax. So the options are kind of really limited. It's either you stop taking tips completely, which you can't do, it's just a terrible thing to do. The second thing then is just only go cash tips. So actually just say, I'm only going to accept cash tips. But the government have come out and said that 80% of all tips come through card now. So you're automatically going to reduce the amount of tips the staff members get. Or now we've developed a tool that will help. So the whole idea is that tips will never hit the business. It will essentially just go directly to the service provider. And that's the bit now that if salons don't really act on it, there's a fear that they will be hit by HMRC. So really look at it. That's the problem.
I think most salon owners are watching this tonight, and some stylists like putting their heads under covers on now. Don't worry, after this we've got Only Fools and Horses on UK Gold, which will cheer you all up after you've listened to Mr. Doom and Gloomy.
Sorry about that. But
You need to
good
know.
news
about
is
you
this
need to
stuff,
know.
though.
you have to know about it, and the good thing is that we've created something to help with it. That's the big thing. We started developing in January to make sure that this is ready to launch in June before this potentially comes out. So that's the big thing.
I think making people aware as well. Obviously not working in a salon. I'm not aware of that, but I mean, and now I think since the pandemic as well, everything is nearly cashless.
Yeah, it's all cards.
You go out in London, and most places don't even take cash anymore.
Yeah.
I was in Westfield a few weeks ago. I would say 90% of places it was just card. Pay with cash.
Yeah, definitely.
They don't want it on the premises anymore.
Yeah, I think it's just I don't know, but I mean, you've really opened my eyes up there. I'd be excited if I got a salon listening to you both, especially with what you do on the colour side and then the whole management side. And I just think it's an exciting time if you are a progressive salon owner and you've got 5 staff or 3 staff, wherever. Just the systems out there for everybody that can make things so much easier for you and give you a clearer perspective.
I think that's the thing. And if you're struggling to make a profit, there are solutions, right? It isn't like, oh, crumbs, actually, by the time I've paid my staff and I've paid my rent and my rates and everything else, I'm left with very little. You can actually do something about it. I think the main thing is to focus on profitability and making sure every guest is profitable for your business. And then how do you grow that from there? At the moment, if you think, right, let's say I was making 3% net profit, to make an extra £1,000 this month, I need to do over £34,000 of extra hairdressing, right? So, but if I manage my business better and I can get a larger margin, right, I'm going to control your costs, charge accurately, do the marketing and the stuff that's going to get people in. I think, the systems are there, I know you say sort of it's doom and gloom, but I think, understanding these problems, we can then find solutions. If you turn a blind eye, then actually, you're going to have an unprofitable business and you're not going to be able to stay open.
I think what I'm learning from this tonight as well is this is kind of like you've got solutions. There's solutions out there. You just got to open your eyes up and say, right, like you just said there, is like I'm not making money, and it's because it's all handwritten. So you still see people walking around doing the stock lists and stuff. And it's like, do you not just press a button somewhere where everybody's put all the information in?
And people don't know, Simon. Honestly, and the team spend their days looking at data with people, and literally they're like, "Oh my goodness me, I did not know." And so I think it is, to your point, Barrett. You need to know this stuff. You need to know it, and then we can start to do something about it.
You've proved without a shadow of a doubt that waste is going on in every business. It has a value. Obviously, your system will be priced on a monthly basis. That by what day are they in profit, Tom?
Well, they typically make 10 to 20 times what it costs each month. So it does depend upon how quickly the team adopt it and that sort of thing. If they're geared towards it from day one, it takes them a matter of days to pay off their upfronts. The first month they're making as much profit as they're spending on colour. So for every £1,000 of colour spend they've got each month, they're now making an extra £1,000 from charging accurately. Wow. It's huge.
That's a game changer.
Have you seen any evidence of them changing the price structuring and the way it's set up in Phorest with regards to billing to help the process?
Yeah, and I think that where guests maybe that regrowth tint isn't a regrowth tint, you think, right, we came out of lockdowns, I hate to say it, but it's like you didn't get regrowth tints. They were all done as half heads or full heads because everybody had such big roots, So where we're seeing a service needs to be upgraded or an additional service needs to be captured, a toner that may be missed off or something like that, they're all mixed in Vish, and so that can actually be then updated in the point of sale. If people are charging for the extra colour itself, which is a very fair, transparent way of doing it, well, actually, you've had £5.63 of extra colour, Simon. so I'm going to bill you for it, and there's a margin in it for you, and the VAT's built in and things. That needs updating on the point of sale. So I can see that sort of, progressing further and further. So actually all of that happens automatically, and we're just charging accurately, and it's not left to judgment. It just pushes through the system, and guess what? If computer says charge £5.63, that's what I'm going to do.
It's added on.
Yeah.
With regards to integration with Phorest?
Yep.
What?
Yes, there's full integration. So we pull through the first, last name, the guest service that they've got booked in. All the data's pushed back in terms of colour notes and that sort of thing. So it exists in Vish for recreation and in Phorest.
So when that client comes back in again, instead of just bobbing off to the colour bar, do they print something out that says this is what happened last time on the record, or?
So, traditionally in a point of sale, you have colour notes which are typed in or, written into so this will automatically come through. Within Vish itself, I've actually got the full history there. So if I was to recreate a colour for somebody, I would literally I can press on it and be recreating. And it knows what I mixed last time without the waste.
Yeah.
So where I might do a mix and I might put into the point of sale, well, I've used 120 grams of product, X of this, X of that, etc. Actually, half of it was chucked down the sink, but I'm still going to mix that 120 grams next time. Yeah. Whereas we're adjusting the whole time. So actually, if I've thrown half of it down the plug hole, the next time it's going to tell me to mix 60, but it's proportionately the same. So I get very consistent colour, but at the right amount without the waste. So it sort of sends back to you what you applied to the guest's hair without the waste.
Okay.
Excellent. Very interesting. Just before, we've talked a lot of tech today. Luke, what was your favourite football team?
Celtic, yeah.
Tom, are you into football?
I'm not actually, no.
I didn't think you were. That's why I said Tom, are you into football?
Wrong shape ball.
What's your hobbies? What do you like to say?
A lot of windsurfing, trail running, and like to watch a bit of rugby. But we won't talk about the rugby.
No, we will talk about that. Actually, yeah, we will. So at the weekend, I was texting Tom, and I said, I hope you enjoy watching the England-Ireland match. I said that, and he texted back and said, there'll be no enjoyment. Ireland are definitely going to win. And they didn't win. England won. So I'm blaming Tom, and the whole nation of Ireland is also blaming Tom. So thanks, Tom.
Whereabouts in Ireland are you from?
Dublin, yeah. Flew over today.
Because you told me a little story that one of our previous guests in the hairdressing, barbering industry, Leah, Aidan Cassidy, you worked with her years ago in Foot Locker.
I did, actually, yeah, I did. I was at, I think it was Creative Head Most Wanted Awards, and or something, I can't remember what it was. I was sitting there and I was looking up and I just seen Leah on screen. And I said, I think I know that. I think I know Leah from somewhere. And then I was looking at the podcast and there she was again. So yeah, I worked with Leah years ago. So when I finished school, I went to Foot Locker and two of us were working there, and now we're both from Dublin and now both working in the UK. But yeah, she's brilliant. She's brilliant.
Both family guys?
Yep.
Kids and stuff?
Yeah, I've got 2 kids. Yeah.
Excellent.
I don't, but my wife is pregnant actually. So she's due in June. Start of June, so my life is probably going to change dramatically.
Yeah, well, it will do, definitely. You're going to be tired for the next 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. I heard it's a barrel of laughs, actually, yeah.
No, it's the best thing that'll ever happen to you, mate. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in to Final Cut and sharing us the tech knowledge that you have done. Certainly, I mean, I get a bit junky because I could just carry on and listen and talk. For salon owners out there and for stylists and for people who've got a hairdressing business, for me, I can't stress to you enough, is speak to the guys and look at how you can change your business for the better, how you can be more profitable, but also how you can enjoy it again instead of having to write everything down and try and do everything analogly. It's like, this is, for me, the future.
It's the 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're here to help. That's the main thing. I think both of us just want the industry, we're aligned with the industry, want the industry to grow, and we're both here to help it. That's
and the fellowship's keen to start driving more business.
He had to drop fellowship in, didn't he? Help himself. It's here at the screen. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and that fellowship there for British hairdressing is
it's
going to be focusing on more business and commercial.
Luke from Phorest, Tom from Vish, thank you very much for coming into Final Cut.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.